Hello, fellow monster lovers, and welcome back to the Mask Fan Attic, high above Horror Hotel, where you come every week to see an interesting mask of one kind or another, and where the spot I'm standing in right now is extremely unsafe. So quickly, before I fall to my next death, let's get on with this week's mask. Now, in 1956, a movie was released by the title of Day the World Ended. Was one of the first Roger Corman directed movies, and it featured an interesting monster who, well, unlike many of the monsters of the day, he just wasn't promoted and loved by the public, and he didn't get his own Aurora model kit, or you know, didn't catch on in a big way in terms of Halloween masks for kids, or action figures or toys or any of that stuff. But I always thought he was kind of cool in his own crude and clunky way, namely the Mutant. Yeah, just the Mutant from Day the World Ended. And well, the three-eyed mutant from Day the World Ended looked quite a bit like this. Now, the original was created by Paul Blaisdell, one of the most famous and renowned monster makers of the 50s, also responsible for other creatures like the She-Creature and It the Terror from Beyond Space. But this was one of his first creations. And, well, Day the World Ended is one of the first films about the end of the world being caused by atomic warfare and radioactive fallout. So this monster is actually supposed to be a radiation mutant, which never made sense to me. To me, he always looked more like a devil from maybe some old 17th century woodcut, you know? He looks like one of the denizens of the underworld to me, more than he does a radiation mutant, what with his, oh, you know, generally devilish-looking expression, and the big hawk nose, and the chin, and the horns, and the pointy ears. If it wasn't for that third eye, the third eye kind of tips you off that he's not the devil, but actually he's a radiation mutant. And, well, they had some funny ideas in the 50s. But anyway, the mutant here, never really given a name in the movie, although it's pretty clear from the script. It is implied that he is the mutated fiance of one of the female characters in the movie, because she's holed up in a house trying to stay out of the radioactive danger zone, and she keeps getting these sort of psychic telepathic communications from her missing fiance. So it's kind of implied that that's what this character is, but they never actually came right out and said so in the script. Now, he was also known on set, and is sometimes lovingly referred to by fans and monster lovers as Marty the Mutant. No, the boyfriend's name was not Marty in the script, but it was just kind of a jokey name, because sometimes monsters get funny, humorous, jokey names on set just among the filmmakers. They just refer to them as one thing or another. The big thing from It Conquered the World was referred to as Beulah. That's not really a good name for it, but it's a funny name, you see. This guy was called Marty the Mutant, so some people know him as Marty the Mutant. This particular version, which is a mask made of latex, as you may have figured out since it's here at the Mask Fan Attic, created in 1993 by a fellow named Ray Hughes of New York, an old friend of mine who isn't really a professional mask maker, but he did dabble for a while and made some masks of characters and creatures that were just ones that he wanted that were otherwise unavailable to him. So, which I think is a pretty good way to do it, don't you? That's smart, that's cool. Kudos to those of you out there who make the masks of the monsters you'd like to have. But there was no mask available of the mutant from Day the World Ended, so Ray Hughes made his own, and this is what it looked like. Now, I assumed over the years that he was making these for collectors and, you know, selling them and sending them out. I assumed these were around. Many years later, I found out that he only ever made 2 copies, one for himself and one that I bought from him back in the day, in, you know, 1993, I suppose it was. But taking a good look at this guy, you may notice he has this very rough, crusty, bumpy texture all over his head and face. Well, Now, there were not really wonderful, smashingly clear stills available when Ray was sculpting this creature, so he wasn't quite sure what to do with the texture. So he ended up giving it a texture that looked more like the texture of the she creature costume, which is sort of a dried up, cracked riverbed kind of texture. But when I got my casting from him, again, 1993, and when I looked at it, I thought, you know, it doesn't look like the same texture to me to what I see when I watched the old VHS tape I had of the movie, because it looked to me like the one in the movie was just rough and bumpy all over. So I added this texture, and because I'm a crazy person, I took a bucket of mask latex and cotton balls, bags of cotton balls, dipped the cotton balls in the latex and stuck them all over. Okay, and the latex, of course, adhered to the latex. Latex sticks to latex pretty nicely. And I painted over that with another layer of latex and then painted it. But it wasn't exactly smooth, but it was kind of cracky. Do you see the texture on these ears? The whole head looked more like that. And that didn't really look as rough to me, and as rough-hewn, rough and tumble. Yeah, didn't look quite as nasty and bumpy and scaly to me as in the movie. So I did this to customize it. And well, this apparently is the only one anybody ever did that to. I thought maybe other people would have done the same thing. And as I mentioned before, I thought at least that Ray would have been selling these around. But again, he wasn't really a mask maker and probably didn't make any attempt to sell them, because he didn't really make it as a you know, a product to produce and offer to the public. He just wanted a mask of this monster for his mask collection, and so he made one, which turned out, I think, very impressively. It looks an awful lot like the thing in the movie. If you haven't seen the movie, when you look at the stills, you will realize, yeah, this is pretty close. It's really surprising to me that in all these years since 1993, nobody else that I know of has offered a mask of this character, because again, it may not be the height of realism, but it's one of those monsters that we all used to see in all the old monster books and magazines. So it's one of those old drive-in B-movie creatures that you know, had his picture in some of the old monster books and so forth. And of course, the both the horns and the ears were cast and molded separately and glued in. But there you have it. Maybe somebody else will do a Marty the Mutant from Day the World Ended. And, well, until they do, I can be up here in the darkness and shadows and cobwebs of the attic with this one. And thank you, Ray Hughes, if you see this video ever. Thank you for doing this thing back in 1993, because I like it.